Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace and blessings be upon you all, and Jummah Mubarak to you all. It's a blessing to be here with you all. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Nahmaduhu, nasta'inuhu, nastaghfiruhu. Wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lah, wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lah. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. All praise is due to Allah, from whom we seek help and forgiveness. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil of our own souls and from that of our bad deeds. Whomsoever Allah guides will never be led astray. Whomsoever Allah leads astray, no one can guide. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship, no God but Allah, the one who has no partner. And I bear witness that Muhammad is Allah's true servant and messenger. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. O ye who believe, be mindful of Allah. Be mindful of Allah in the way that Allah deserves, and do not die except in a state of full submission to Allah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. O ye who believe, be mindful of Allah. Be mindful of Allah and say that which is right. Speak the truth. Allah will bless your deeds for you and forgive you of your sins. And whoever obeys Allah and the Messenger of Allah has truly achieved great triumph. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. I pray that may Allah open my chest, make it easy for me this task, and loosens the knot of my tongue, that my speech may be understood. And glory be to you, Allah, glory be to you alone, that we have no knowledge except you, what you have taught us, and verily it is you who are the all-knowing, the all-wise. Again, Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings to you all on this blessed day of Jummah. So I was thinking about this concept of rootedness and what does it mean to be rooted in something, and the image that comes to mind for myself and maybe for many other people, maybe for you, is that of a tree. And specifically, when I was thinking about a tree, the image of the California redwood trees, the redwood trees had come to mind. And, these are very famous trees. You may have seen them in some way, shape, or form, either in a video or a photograph, or have seen them in person as well. But thinking about these trees that are 300 to 400 feet tall, they lived to about 2,000 years old, and they've been around since the time of the dinosaurs. And it's just really something to see. But they've been around for millions of years, generation after generation, through the changing continents, through the changing landscapes, the different storms, and all the different things in climate that are changing, the human activity that has brought about change. These trees have remained where they are. They've remained firm and rooted and stayed right and planted where they are. They've not been degraded in a way that they are seen as antiquated or completely archaic in a way, and just outdated, and no longer able to participate or functional or seen as useful in this day and age. Rather, they have weathered those storms. They have continued to persist. They haven't changed who they are. They haven't gone from being 300 to 400 feet foot tall trees to just like little bushes because it's necessary for their survival. They've evolved in their own ways, but they've adapted to survive through all these different adverse conditions and ongoing, so on and so forth. Yet they have maintained that integrity of being this tree, this rooted tree that is definitively defined by its size, its width, its depth, it's just its grandeur in that aspect, and they've persisted. Not to say that, as we mentioned, they've just been like a pillar of stone and just remained like that, and just slowly eroded. They're living beings. They are dynamic, and so they've adapted in different ways. But nevertheless, their identity, who they are, their functional purpose, all of these different things has remained the same. And so the metaphor feels almost apt for us to think about, what does it mean for us to when we look at ourselves as people of faith, when we look at ourselves as Muslims, when we look at ourselves as a people who believe in God, to be able to go through not just the rest of our lives, but just be able to go through day after day in a society that continuously and gradually, in some ways, and in an increasing fashion, marginalizes religion, is seeing religion as something that is that kind of baggage, the monkey on your back, the ball and chain that can be let go of, or it's expendable. It's something that's holding you back. It's not something that's allowing you to experience society in its fullest. And it's something that is outdated, archaic, and it's no longer suitable for our day and age. In a time where society is also changing very quickly, the values of society are changing. Different things about society are changing very rapidly. That religion is seen as something that's a very outdated thing to even try and hold on to. And as people of faith, we oftentimes find ourselves at this intersection, that's a juncture that we have to choose one or the other. That because of the way we want to maybe live in society, the way we want to be seen, or the way we want to be connected, we often maybe times feel that we have to expend or let go of our faith, or significant elements of our faith in order to do so. And so this question then comes about, that as a people of faith, where do we want to plant our roots? Where do we want to put our roots in? And when we think about these trees, when we think about the redwood trees, they're not sitting on the edge of a cliff somewhere just and moving along season to season, that whenever the environment gets a little hostile, it gets a little rough, the seasons get a little bit tight, the humans start to come and ruin everything, they start to move from place to place. They don't just go and blow in the direction that the wind blows and just go wherever and find themselves in the middle of the ocean, or find themselves on the side of a cliff or anywhere else. They're in the area that they are, and they've maintained the air in the space that they're in. They've continued and rooted themselves in that area, and made themselves a part of that, not as some kind of last vanguard or some stand against whatever it may be, that they're taking a stand against something, but they've maintained who they are while still being able to benefit that which is around them, and while still being able to be benefited in a way, and be able to survive and be able to thrive. And so when we think about for ourselves as these people of faith, and we think about and conceptualize that we've been given this seed, this sapling of faith, we've been given the sapling of our faith tradition of Islam, where are we going to plant this? Are we going to plant it into the soil of faith? Are we going to plant it into that soil, this sapling that represents us? Are we going to plant it here? Are we going to plant it into society's values, and what society holds as what's acceptable and what's normative, and are we going to put it there? And what we oftentimes will find in these two situations is thinking about, not to put a complete dichotomy on it, but just to think about, when we're put at this juncture, it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can obviously try and strike and find a balance. But when we are forced to, or made to feel that our religion is something that needs to be let go of because of something that society tells us is acceptable or unacceptable, we should give it some due diligence and some thought, thinking about this aspect that society's values change quite often. And we're in a time and place, as we mentioned, that where more and more people are leaving religion, and religion is becoming something that is more of something that is drifting towards the margins, and in some cases is in the margins. And I remember there's a famous hadith of our Prophet ﷺ's teaching that Islam originated as something strange, and Islam will finish and continue and be something strange even at the end of times, and later on in life, that Islam will also be something that is strange. It's seen as kind of odd in that time in Mecca, where it came about, it's like, what is this? What are y'all doing? And seeing how people are praying and prostrating, it's like, why are y'all doing this? Versus now, where you can feel those elements as well. And our Prophet ﷺ had taught that a time of patience will come to a people when adhering to one's faith is like grasping a hot coal, that it's going to be something really hard to do. Obviously, it'll be very difficult to do when you're truly authentically trying to hold on to your faith. That's going to be this grasping onto like a hot coal. When you hold a hot coal, I can't speak from experience, but I can just extrapolate or hypothesize that it would probably burn your hand. It's going to cause a lot of pain, but what's interesting is that we oftentimes simplify this hadith to just say it's going to be hard to hold on to faith. But thinking about in this aspect where what the alternative would be, what makes someone pick up that hot coal and hold on to it versus what is around, what is happening in the world around, what would make that person pick this up and say, this is a better alternative than what is happening there. It makes you think about the value. What is the value of going through that difficulty of doing something that is not seen as easy or seen as normative in the time of that society, but being able to hold on to something? What does that say in the long run? What does that say just substantively? And so when we think about this aspect of where society might tell us what's valued now and what's not valued, and specifically with respect to elements of our faith or faith in general, come to see that society's values change quite often within our own lifetimes. I imagine there's many things that have changed that previously were probably not seen as acceptable and now are unacceptable, or things that were not acceptable and now are acceptable in this time. But thinking about just if we root ourselves in this society's values, that less than 100 years ago, interracial marriage was illegal in this country. Less than 100 years ago, people with disabilities were treated differently, that they were treated such differently in a way that they were able to be seen as almost expendable, as those who could be sterilized, as those who could be subject to these experiments, because we don't want this kind of human being or these kinds of humans to, God forbid, procreate, that these folks should be sterilized. That within 100 years ago, medical science would advocate for the marginalization of these kinds of people. Less than 100 years ago, it was acceptable in this particular area in Central Texas to take a mob and to lynch a black man, put him on a tree, gather the people around, take a photo, and send that postcard to your friends and families around. That this was what the society had deemed as this was acceptable. This was fine in that day and age. And to think about that even in contemporary times, I'm not advocating by any means on any intoxicant or anything that's haram. And to speak with respect to, as an example of marijuana, that the way marijuana has been criminalized, the way marijuana has been very much kind of tokenized and utilized in a way that has destroyed communities, that has destroyed individuals' lives, that has filled prisons, that you have marijuana being criminalized and utilized in such a way. Yet we have alcohol that is put on every single advertisement you can see, on every single billboard, in any sports game, in any kind of endorsing fashion. It's inseparable from what we do and what we see in our day and age and in society. Yet alcohol is like the fourth leading preventative killer of Americans in this country, that it kills 150,000 people each year. And that's something that is seen as completely okay and acceptable and encouraged in many ways. But medical or marijuana is seen as something that can get you locked up for just in terms of its usage. And you see, this is society's values are kind of out of touch in so many different ways, that they're very capricious. They change with the wind in that way. When we think about what we just listed up of our society valuing certain things just less than 100 years ago, of banning interracial marriage, of okaying lynchings, of euthanizing and of sterilizing people with disabilities, and so on and so forth. Think about the time with our Prophet ﷺ, when you have a early ummah that is 1400 years old, that is in the heart of the Arabian Peninsula. He had black Sahabi, he had Arabs, he had people who were seen as red or white, this complexion of European almost. He had a diverse group. Did he create a separate space for, this is where the black Sahaba will pray, this is where the Arab Sahaba will pray, this is where the non-Arab and the Arab will pray? Did he have different water fountains like we did less than 100 years ago in this country that said colored and whites only? Did he have Arab and non-Arab? And this element of the marginalizing the disabled. We see the Quran lifting up people who were who were not of similar abilities, who were blind, but would come to the Prophet ﷺ seeking knowledge and be in the space and lifted up in that sense. That the muaddin as well, alongside Bilal, of Islam was also someone who was blind. Abdullah ibn Maktum was a blind man. And so thinking about that, what Islam's values are, what faith's values are, very different in the sense of not just how they're treated from how society's values can be treated and how society's values are changed. You see this aspect of these values that are kind of held, and we think of now, what are society's values? It's not we value these kinds of more polarizing things, but thinking about the things that society values. Time is money. That money makes the world go around. That get your bag, do whatever you got to do, collect your property. All of these different things that are there. What does society value at different stages in different places? And thinking about and how those change continuously, how those kind of go about versus what our faith echoes and faith lifts up as its values. There's a sociologist that lifted up this aspect that values guide our human behavior, and values that are tangible, that are seen as they can be replaced, they can be easily changed and interchanged and whatnot. Those are values that are expendable. But sacred values are values that are seldom compromised because they are seen and perceived to be more as duties rather than factors or any kind of transactional kind of accounts. That these are values that we see as part and parcel of our existence and our being. And so these values help guide our human behavior. And when they are sacred values, they help us get into a space where we grow as humans and are able to see ourselves develop and be able to see the best version of ourselves. But when those values are rooted in very cheap things and very capricious things that might be valued today, might not be valued tomorrow, they're not everlasting, that we find ourselves struggling in different ways. And when we think about what were these values, what was this communal value, what was this Muslim Islamic value, we can throw out so many different aspects and elements. But when we think about what were these values with respect to the Muslim community, these values that were akin to the soil in which a tree is being planted, in which that tree is allowed to be rooted and firmly rooted, and it's allowed to weather the seasons, it's allowed to be able to stay firm and not just blowing wherever the wind takes it or wherever the season changes, but it stays where it is, but it's able to thrive. And we see an example of this when the Prophet ﷺ first came into Medina, and you have the intersections of a community that is on the margins, as a community that is migrated from Mecca, that has left behind their homes, has left behind family ties, has left behind all these different things, their property, and are coming as asylum seekers, are coming as refugees into Medina, into a new land, a new space, and with the new people. Even though they're Arabs, they have their different tribes, they have their different nuances that are there, and they come into the space and are now seen as one community, not defined by Banu this or Bani that or anything like that, or the tribe of this, tribe of that. They're seen as Muslims. They're still eclectic. They're still diverse in their different ways. And the Prophet ﷺ comes into the space, and it's reported by Abdullah ibn Salam that the first thing I heard the Prophet ﷺ say when he came into Medina, and he addresses the crowd of people, and he says, "Oh people," he says, "Afshu salam, ya ayyuhan nas." Says, "Afshu salam, wa atimu ta'am, wasilu al-arham." He says, "Oh people, spread the salam, spread the greetings of peace, but spread the peace amongst each other, and feed one another. Wa'timu ta'am, feed others. Do acts of goodness, feed each other knowledge, feed each other food, take care of each other, be responsible for each other." And then wasilul arham, that uphold the ties of kinship. We maintain the ties of connection and family. And wasallu bil layl, that pray at night, that pray at night when everybody is sleeping. And the Prophet ﷺ lifts up that, and you will enter paradise with salam, you will enter paradise with peace. That, oh people, when you come into the space, knew all of these different things. The community is just settling down. The roots have not yet been have not yet had a chance to develop. But the Prophet ﷺ is planting this new community in this land, and is setting them here. And the soil is now rich with these values of, oh, people, spread the peace. Be a people who not only receive the greetings of peace, but to give something of better in return, to spread the peace, both in greeting, but in action and in existence. And feed one another, feed those who are in need, feed each other, take care of each other, have this social responsibility for each other, be like this, be a connected community, be, like the bricks of a house, be together. And then uphold your ties of kinship, be good to your families, maintain that connection. Don't get lost in all these other things as well, but take care of your own families as well. Maintain the ties of kinship and a family. And also for yourselves, pray at night when people are sleeping, and you will enter paradise in peace. So thinking about how the Prophet ﷺ is, as if like a gardener, is setting the roots of this community, is setting down this community, and these are the basic values that he is setting down to spread the peace, to take care of each other, to be charitable, to take care of those in need, to be people who also take care of their families and uphold ties of kinship, but then also a people of faith, the people who maintain that connection with their creator, even if it's not in the most public space, but to do, especially at night when people are sleeping. And the end result of that, to enter into paradise with peace. And think about, these are values that transcend time and space. These are what that sociologist would call sacred values. These are values that are not time is money. I got to get this, and because what's chasing money and all this stuff now in this day and age and this time, a few years later might be like, I don't really value that anymore. We see that a lot with different celebrities and different people who reach these peaks of society's point in which they're like, man, they achieved that highest strata of success, and they're just like, you know what, I don't care about the money anymore. It's not about it anymore. I want to do something else, or I'm bored with this or whatnot. And you see that it's not then the double-sided sword of kind of having something like changeable and transactional as money or as property or as anything that's intangible as a value. And we think about this when the Arabs are, the pre-Islamic Arabs are addressed in a way in the Quran, that the Quran lifts up this aspect of a value of what do you plant, what kind of eternal value does it lift up, and it speaks to these transactional values that were of pre-Islam, that it lifts up in Surah Shu'ara, that on that day when neither wealth nor children will be any benefit to you, only that which is a sound heart, the one who brings a sound heart, that will be the only thing that can benefit you. And it lifts up that يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَعْلُونَ وَلَا بَنُونَ, that nor your wealth nor your children will be of any benefit. And thinking about, these were the pre-Islamic values of what constituted not just a successful life, but what really constituted that which was a value to chase for, that to have a good amount of status, money, lineage, have a lot of children, have all of these different things. These were the values to be in this life, of being seen as successful and whatnot. And there was not that afterlife. There was just this life and nothing else. It literally was YOLO, that you only live once in this life. But to think about, these were the values, and the Quranic message refuted it. And it said that your children, your wealth, that's not going to benefit you. What will benefit you is a sound heart, is a heart that is purified, a heart that is without any enmity, but a heart that is qalbin salim, that a heart that is purified in this aspect. And so thinking about, this was the value that were lifted up as the Muslim community continued to grow, that you have this element of communal connection. You have personal responsibility to God and personal worship to God. You had the aspect of maintaining connection, of welfare, of all of these aspects. And then you had the aspect of continuing to purify ourselves. And so thinking about how, as we close, inshallah, soon, that think about what are those values that we can hold on to, that not only we can hold on to, we can continue to strengthen, we can continue to deepen, and we can invest in, rather than feeling like we have to keep up with what is the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, because society is telling us what's outdated now or what's outdated there, or that we are kind of on the margins. But thinking about what can we root ourselves in that will be not just good for the short term, but especially for the long term. And not only for the short term, where it's like, hey, I'm good with this, but then society decides to change or something else, and that's not cool anymore. That's not the way to do things anymore. And then you feel like, oh, well, I guess that's not good. So you find yourself continuing to ebb and flow versus being able to gradually build, gradually build, gradually build. So thinking about this now in the context of when we garden, when you garden, you can't just throw any plant in the ground and just water it, indiscriminately, or put all the light in it and just dump fertilizer on it and be like, okay, hey, it's good to go. When you garden, when you first garden, you have to know what the soil is. You have to know the specificities of how that plant is going to thrive, how that sapling is going to thrive, what kind of light it needs, what kind of nutrients it needs, what kind of soil it needs. You have to know the environment. And the environment in and of itself, the root is what will, when the roots are strong, this plant is going to be able to survive, even if the weather and the what's going on above the surface is adverse and it gets knocked out. The roots can bring about that aspect of growth as long as they're taken care of. And thinking about what does it mean for us when we are cultivating a sound heart, when we are cultivating ourselves as Muslims, as people in this society that is in this world that's changing rapidly, to be able to be planted in a way that which we stand firm in our faith. We don't have to be, rigid or stoic, but that we stand firm in a way that we're dynamic, we're engaged with that which is around us, but we continue to benefit, and not just benefit just for all the time that we're alive, but even in death, we provide a benefit. I saw nearby my home that a tree in our park had fallen down. And as sad as that scene is, you still see the animals continuing to benefit from the tree. The tree itself really like returns back to the roots, and it's going back into the soil. But you see the animals continuing to take of the tree. That children are going to be playing on the different logs of the tree. That it continues to benefit in different ways. And so thinking about how what we do in this life and the roots that we plant and that we hold on to, that then give rise to us later on, allow us to grow our branches and to bear fruit for the rest of the world, not only have to be of benefit in this life, but continue to benefit for others in the life to come, and even after we are long and gone. So thinking about what is it like for us to be like those redwoods, planting our roots deep, to be able to continue and to strengthen. The last thing I'll say is that the secret to these redwood trees, the secret to being as long as their longevity in terms of not just their height and their size, that's been the secret to them living as long as they have. If you look at the root system of redwood trees, they're not just going straight down and all the way into the earth and planted. Their roots have come together. And they are bound and intertwined with the neighboring trees. And so they've rooted themselves in a way that it's not just you're trying to knock down one tree, you are trying to do it to all these other trees. And so their steadfastness in this aspect, their rootedness and their firmness in the ground, and their strength in terms of how well they're planted, is in due as well, in fact, to how they are intertwined together. So not undervaluing the aspect of community, as our Prophet ﷺ taught us, that don't just, this religion of Islam is absolutely has its solo experiences, but is absolutely a connected religion. And so when we think about that soil of salam, that soil of ta'am, of feeding, that soil of prayer, that soil of silul arham, of taking care of one's family and connecting, that it's absolutely a soil that you are not just planted in, you are connected to others in. And so a tree can only go as long for a certain amount of time when it's by itself in an environment that's very foreign and alien to it, and doesn't have those other support systems. It will maintain for as long as it can, but it won't be as long as if it was in a forest or if it was in a surrounding environment with other similar kinds of trees and vegetation nearby. So thinking about the value of this. So as we close, think about, where are you going to plant your roots as a Muslim, as a person of faith? And thinking about, when society tells you to plant your roots here or to plant your roots here, it may feel like more like a dandelion seed that's going to blow away here and there. but in what way can you plant your seed within your own faith and see that you are still able to contribute to society while still holding on to who you are, not compromising who you are, but you can plant your roots in that mercy and that rahmah. You can plant that root in the divine oneness of Allah. You can plant that root in the salam. You can plant that root in the prophetic community, still be a benefit to a changing, ever-changing society, while still not losing who you are. And thinking about those redwood trees, but thinking about so many other examples. And when we observe in the nature around that the world is going by, and these things may feel like they are outdated or not, they're rigid, they're not flexible or whatnot, but they are the reason that life on this earth exists. If you were to take away trees from this world, we would not be alive for very long. And so think about how those stoic planted spaces may feel like they're not moving and they're not all over the place, but they are a valuable contributor, invaluable contributor to life, to existence, and in their own way are engaging, surviving, thriving, adjusting, adapting, evolving, still dynamically, and at the end of the day, still, as the Quran teaches us, they also are prostrating to their Lord. They are also worshiping their Lord. So may Allah enable us to be a people that are rooted in our faith, that allow us to be deeply rooted in our faith to a point to where we can make the most benefit and most difference to the society around us for this life. And even after we pass away, that our roots, our foundation, our trees, our branches, the fruits that we bear continue to benefit the people who are around and for days to come. And may all of this be for the sole pleasure of Allah and the day when it counts the most. That may all of this be for just for that sound heart at the end of the day that we hope will be there for us. So وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. Our Lord, accept this humble service for us, for thou art all hearing, all knowing. Inshallah. Ameen. Jazakallah khair. A blessed Jummah Mubarak to you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.